right, everybody, welcome back to Grizzle Commodity Conference. Keep on rolling. Next, we're joined by a longtime commodity producer. They've been producing copper for over 30 years and without a mine, so very interesting. We're excited to be joined by Aurora Davidson. She's CEO of Amerigo Resources. Aurora, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for chatting with me again.
So, Aurora, for those viewers who may need a reminder, do you mind giving our audience a quick refresher on Amerigo's business model?
Absolutely. Amerigo has a 100% owned operation in Chile, which is called MVC. It produces copper and it also produces molybdenum as a byproduct from the waste material of the world's largest underground copper mine, which is Codelco's El Teniente mine. By recovering this copper, Amerigo essentially eliminates the world's need for a mid-sized copper mine. We have been doing this since 1992. We have a simple and proven technology and a very streamlined business model where we sell the copper and the moly that we produce at market prices. So in other words, we provide our investors with full exposure to copper and moly prices. We have predictable operations and therefore we have predictable cash flow. And just to end up on that description, because we do not need growth capital, we are able to return capital to our shareholders through a multi-pronged return of capital policy.
Okay, great. That's very interesting. So I saw you exceeded your production guidance for was the third year in a row in 2022. So in your view, what are the keys to your operational success?
The key to our operation success is planning what we will do, how we will do it, and also thinking about what could go wrong as we try to do it. We look at these variables constantly and we have a very well-defined list of objectives that we need to achieve in the year. So we have this in front of us at all times. You mentioned production. For example, in 2022, we produced 64 million pounds of copper compared to a budget of 63.4 million. We focus not only on a global list of meeting production targets, we have monthly goals, we get a daily production report. So if something is coming out of line, we know it quickly and we can adjust quickly. For example, another element of 2022 was inflation. Everybody will remember 2022 as a highly inflationary year. But through this attention to detail, we were able to keep our costs under control and our cash cost was only 2% over budget. So this may sound like a boring answer, but the key to our successful operation is careful planning, not having distractions, and having daily attention to detail.
I like boring answers. In mining, boring is always good. So next, I wanted to ask you about the waste tailings that you process to produce copper. They come from the El Teniente mine. That's one of the largest copper mines in the world, if I'm not mistaken. So what gives you confidence this mine can continue to produce tailings in the years to come? And does Amerigo have access to the tailings from El Teniente for the life of mine?
That's a great question. And you're right, El Teniente is a significant mine. It is the mine from which we get our material. It is the largest underground copper mine in the world. But let me give you some dates. El Teniente began operations in 1905 and has not suspended operations since. It has a current life of mine projected to run to 2082. So when you look at those dates, this is quite critical. There is no question that El Teniente can continue producing tailings for longer than you or I essentially will live. And now, the second part of your question was how long do we have access to those tailings? Right now, our contract runs to 2037. Originally, the contract expired in 2021. And years before it was set to expire, we extended it by 16 years. So we expect a similar extension to occur as the contract continues to evolve and we get closer to that termination date.
So now I want to move to your dividend yield. It looks like right now you have about a 7% dividend yield. That's the highest it's one of the highest in the copper mining universe, small cap, mid cap, large cap. And that's even though you have more cash than debt and you have low leverage ratios. So that makes it unique from our perspective. Do you have an opinion on what it will take for the market to start bidding your yield down in line with everyone else?
That's also a very good question. Thanks for asking that one. We started paying our dividends in the fourth quarter of 2021 and have now paid 6 consecutive quarterly dividends. So we have started building a foundation, and the company is starting to be known as a company that pays steady dividends. I think this is a critical quality element for yield investors. No one goes into a dividend paying company that may run out of steam and be forced to reduce or suspend the dividend. If you look at 2022, for example, it was a year with high copper price volatility and falling copper prices. Irrespective of that volatility, Amerigo was able to weather the storm and still return a healthy amount of capital to shareholders. So that ties into the question that you asked at the beginning of our chat. Amerigo is starting to be known for operational excellence and financial strength as our return of capital strategy unfolds. The market is recognizing that. In 2022, we outperformed many of our peers, particularly mid-tier copper producers with respect to share price performance. So I think it is a question of establishing that quality and that predictability that's going to do that jump on share price to equalize our dividend yield to a more attainable level.
So the way I read that is that you've set the dividend at a level that you believe is sustainable, and then you'll build off of that as you go through time.
Correct. That is correct. But I also think that having a consistent dividend in it, and also the other tools that we have on our dividend, on our capital return policy, which are the performance dividends and the share buybacks, is starting to be recognized by the market and pushing our share price forward.
Now you almost answered my next question. On performance dividends, which you did pay last year, you recently commented that you expect to be able to pay performance dividends on top of your regular dividend based on where copper prices are year to date, around $4 per pound. So what copper price is the minimum you would want to see to be comfortable paying out special dividends? And do you have an expectation of paying out special dividends this year?
Look, performance dividends will depend on various elements, and we haven't paid one yet, by the way. One of the factors for performance dividends is obviously the spot copper price. Where are we sitting in respect of copper prices at the current moment? But we also have to look at the assessment of the global macro environment, the copper price outlook, and also the interaction with the other elements of our return of capital policy. For example, share buybacks. Right now, we think that buying back Amerigo shares at the current share price makes a lot of sense. If that were not the case, and we didn't have that additional element of buying shares back in the market, the performance dividend could start at $4 per pound copper, given the rate that we have on our quarterly dividend and the ability of generating a substantial amount of surplus cash at the current copper price environment. So there are a number of elements, but the easy answer to your question is if we didn't have any share buybacks, or if buying shares does stop making sense to us, anywhere from $4 per pound copper is a territory where performance dividends can kick up for Amerigo.
So the way investors should think about this is that when there's free cash flow, it's a decision between buybacks or a special dividend, whatever has the best return for investors.
Yeah, or a combination of both. It doesn't have to be one before the other, right? It could be both, but it's always looking for that opportunistic buyback on the market. In absence of that, the decision becomes quite easy, really, in terms of the performance dividend.
Aurora, just a final question with respect to your maiden first ESG report, which you just released. Could you talk us through the importance of sustainability, and I think just particularly with respect to institutional investors, and just how they view it? And also, I struggle, bigger picture, I struggle to think of a company that's more sustainable than Amerigo, with respect to everything you're doing from start to end with respect to ESG credentials.
Absolutely, and that's why we wanted to show this, Thomas, in a very simple way with a very easy to understand and read scorecard. It's a one-pager, but that one-pager basically is telling you a very compelling story. The first element, of course, is that we're producing copper from waste material. The waste material is there. If no one else was taking care of this material, it would be essentially a mine of copper lost to the world in an environment where the world needs that copper. Then we go into how do we do it? How do we produce that copper? We produce it with clean energy. This is not a plan where we want to have 100% renewable energy in 10 years from now. We already have it. We've had it for 3 years. We have low water withdrawal. We have a great safety record for our employees and our subcontractors in Chile. Our location is essentially almost a suburban mine inserted in central Chile, next to agricultural land, next to vineyards. We're not, an ugly corporate citizen polluting the environment. And we have a very diverse team, right? All of our team in Chile are local. We don't have any expats living there. Our management team, extended management team for Amerigo, is basically comprised of that Chilean team. We have a major Hispanic presence on the management team, women presence on the board and on management, etc. So these are attributes that are there now and that are compelling to investors. Not to substitute performance. I think that investors first look at performance, first look at, this is a business, but if that business has a strong ESG acumen, it provides a significant competitive advantage.
Aurora, great insights there, and clearly investors have gotten the best of both worlds, particularly in 2023, both performance and strong ESG credentials. Thank you very much for being a part of Grizzle Commodity One-on-One.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, you just heard from Amerigo Resources, Commodity Con. I think we're not even halfway done, so we're going to keep on rolling. Don't go anywhere because we're going to have a lot more insights on the commodity space. We'll be right back.